Hello, this is Kelly from True Crime and Coffee Chat, coming at you again with another true crime case. I'm going to have this up early for my Patreon and Spotify Premium subscribers because it is August 9th and it will not be up until Friday. This is Saturday, so it will be up on the podcast Friday. So I don't have that date in my head. I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I'm so sorry. But I try to get these out every other Friday, and so far I'm doing pretty good from the last one. So, but it will be up this week early for Patreon and Spotify Premium subscribers. I am drinking Java Mama dark chocolate donut. So good. I love the donut flavored coffees. Our carnival flavors are out for August in our Mama's Picks. Java Mama, we got caramel corn craze, which is of course a caramel. Tilt-a-swirl, which is caramel. Wait, that's butterscotch and toffee. Oh my gosh, it sounds so good. And then we got a chocolate tunnel of love. Those three together in the collection are for free shipping, and you can only buy them all together right now. Usually after the month of August, they will go up individually, but not always. It depends on if they still have some left, because these are limited, and I had to get these flavors. I had to. So I ordered them, and being a barista of Java Mama, I got them actually $10 cheaper than what they are. So they were $10 cheaper, plus I got free shipping. So I am so happy to get those. So brew up your favorite drink, or even if it's alcohol, which is another recommendation because I love my wine. But I am drinking coffee. It is in the early afternoon on a Saturday, and it is scorching hot here. So I hope everybody is staying cool where they're at because I cannot wait for fall. Fall is my season. So anyway, I'm going to get on with this case. My sources for this are Murder in the Heartland, caselaw.findlaw.com, legacy.com, and wcpo.com. This is a story of Leigh Jennings. Very, very sad. Of course, all the cases I present are sad. This one, I'm telling you, it just really made me horribly, horribly, horribly sad. But on that note, we're going to Aurora, Indiana, which is in Dearborn County. Leigh Jennings, and Leigh was her maiden name. She was born May 14th, 1944. She worked in a barber shop, so she was a barber, a grandmother, and a mother of 2 adult sons, Ryan and Brandon, plus a cat mom. And I also read that she recently had become about 5 months before this happened, 4 months, sorry, she became a great-grandmother. So, but she's 67, and this was March 29th, 2012. Leigh Jennings told her neighbors, Brian and Tracy, that she was going to go have lunch with a friend, and her mother had a stroke, so she was going to go be with her mom later that day. But she never came back home. And they noticed her mail was piling up in her mailbox, and it had been probably 7 days. She lived in a duplex, so the neighbors were, right there connected to her. And so they knew something wasn't right. April 5th, so about a week later, they called her mother, and her mother said Leigh never did come to see her. So her neighbor got into the house. He actually went into the house through a window to check out if she was still there. And he said he could smell something as he walked through the house. He found Leigh lying on the floor in her kitchen, and her cats were walking around her. He noticed that there was blood running down the wall from a cast iron skillet. And this cast iron skillet's like 20, 25 pounds. Those are heavy. It was hanging on the wall. The skillet was hanging on the wall, and there was blood dripping from it. Both of the neighbors were there. So They also saw a pizza box on the floor. They ended up calling 911. And when investigators got there, they at first thought she had fallen, but there was so much blood and it was splattered everywhere. This was not from a fall. It was a homicide. So they knew right away. I mean, it was just a horrific scene. She had been beaten with the cast iron skillet and a pepper grinder. So she was unrecognizable. Everyone was in shock over this in the community. She was very giving, very loved, and so good-hearted. They had no idea who would do this to her. She was just a good-hearted person, and she helped people out. The neighbor slept with his gun that night. He slept with his gun because, see, it was a safe community, but there were drugs around. So, I mean, there were people that were doing drugs in the community, but it was still a safe community. It wasn't, but he was, I mean, the people in the community were really scared because they're like, who broke in and killed this woman for no reason they could think of. So, yeah, he slept with his gun that night. Leigh's neighbor said she saw a strange, now this is Tracy, Brian's wife, Brian and Tracy, the neighbors, saw a strange black car that night that she had never seen before. And her sons, it must have been parked on Leigh's side of the duplex. And her two sons were interviewed because she had a life insurance policy and both her sons were the beneficiaries. So at first they we got to get that, we got to interview them even to clear them, first. There was no sign of a break-in. Matter of fact, both doors were locked, front and back. Most of her money she had in her home in cash. She did not trust banks or the government, and she had 2 safes. The money was gone, both safes, the money was gone, and there was blood found inside one of the safes. And that blood was Leigh Jennings' blood. April 6th. They found an ex-convict that lived in the area and looked into him. He said he never killed Leigh Jennings, but they said the look that he gave them put investigators on edge. He did, though. He did have an alibi, and it checked out. But he was one that they were really looking into. There were certain people who came into the barbershop and would wait for Leigh to cut their hair. Because she was very good to talk to. And they liked her. She was it sounded to me like she was a very personable person. And her coworker told investigators that he knew one guy who was hanging around her for about a year. And she would talk about going out with him, but they were just friends, nothing more. And I guess the guy wanted more. This is coming from the coworker that thought that the guy wanted more. The neighbors also saw a guy outside mowing her lawn one day, and Leigh introduced them, but he never said a word to him. Usually when you introduce somebody, you say, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." Nothing from this guy. She said his name was Steve, and he was some kind of insurance agent. So investigators noticed the pizza box, and that was in her kitchen, that was on the floor, and it had a receipt on it with the name Stevenson and a time. So Leigh's friend Laura found this guy online as Steve Stevenson, and he was one of Leigh's Facebook friends. His real name is actually Robert Charles Stevenson, but they called him Steve. And he was the man who would constantly come to the barbershop. The coworker said, "That's him," because they got his picture from, Facebook, and police went to find him right away. They found out he sold insurance to people and also stole their money. He would scam the elderly, and he owed people money. It was weird how it happened. It was almost like a Ponzi scheme. Like he would sell insurance, get their money, and then use that to pay other... I didn't understand it. Like if he owed somebody money, he would use that to pay people. So he would scam money out of people and then pay his debts, is what it sounded like to me. So it didn't really sound like he was getting rich off of it. he got into trouble for writing bad checks, and he had to get $1,000 or go to jail. Leigh Jennings is the person he knew who could get money from to pay off his debt. Now, he borrowed money from her in the past, and how Leigh would give it to him. He would stay in the front of her house, and she would go into the back and bring money out to him in 20s and 100s. And this is when he suspected she had a safe that she had money in. So they went to his apartment. The investigators went to his apartment, but he wouldn't answer the door. So they got SWAT to go into his apartment, and they went in, and they found him lying there with cut wrists with blood. Now, he left a suicide note stating he did not kill Leigh Jennings, but he was not dead. He went to the hospital on suicide watch, and then after about a week there in the hospital, when he got out, he was arrested. They had the last text message Leigh received, and it was from him, plus the time on the pizza receipt. And they were thinking Leigh was forced to get her money from the safe since her blood was inside of it. And they didn't know for sure, but it just is really sad to think about that he forced her to open that safe and give him that money after he beat her. What they think is that he beat her with the cast iron skillet, and then forced her in to get the money, and then beat her with a pepper grinder. But Steve's blood was on the pepper grinder, and his fingerprint was found on a promissory note that she had, that he must have written her or something. And Leigh Jennings died of a fractured skull. And it's so sad to think about that. I did not hear that it sounds to me like he did not admit it, because the police were, investigators were, their own they were speculating how it happened. So I did not hear what he pled. He must have pled not guilty. He must have, because he got May 21st of 2013. Steve was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Like I said, I never did hear his plea or anything like that. But her neighbors moved away. Leigh Jennings' neighbors moved away. They were just so brokenhearted that they moved away shortly after that happened, and I really do not blame them. That would be so sad. Ironically, Leigh Jennings grew up in Florence, Kentucky. Well, this is where Steve's aunt and uncle, William and Peggy Stevenson, was murdered on Memorial Day in their home the year before this happened. That case remains unsolved. That his aunt and uncle were murdered. And I am kind of surprised that didn't reopen after this, because that is a little coincidental. And I did not find out how they died. I was trying to remember, and I don't think I found out how they died, if it was from blunt force trauma, but that's what I'm thinking of. If it was blunt force trauma, that it was him that did it. I have no doubt in my mind. And their son is trying to still find out who did it. But that just seems very... I mean, he was sentenced in 2013. Quite a few years have gone by. That's why I'm kind of surprised that I couldn't find anything on that case to say it was solved. Everything I found, it said it was still unsolved, but he is suspected of killing his aunt and uncle. Very, very, very sad that money can do this to somebody, because they don't want to go out and get a job. They don't want to work. They want to do this stuff to try to make money. And it's like, I don't know. These people, I think he should have went. I think he should have gotten the death penalty, but I'm not sure if the death penalty was going at that time in Indiana. I don't know, but very, very, very sad case. Oh my gosh. It's just one of those that I haven't heard of before, but it has been on Murder in the Heartland, and matter of fact, I think it's the very first episode they ever did in the first season. So if you wanted to watch that, it's very good. Her sons are on there talking, and the neighbors are on there talking, and so sad. it's like you can't trust anybody. You're nice to people, you try to help them, and you really can't trust anybody. So just be safe. Watch yourself if you go to help people. My dad was doing that before he passed, and I got really worried about him because the people he was helping were not, they weren't, I don't even want to go into that, but they weren't good people, put it that way. But anyway, I have been watching, of course, Dexter, and I haven't watched this week's yet. I need to get that. We've been so busy, but I haven't watched that yet. Boy, that's a good one. I am cannot wait to watch this one because of what happened on the last episode. Very interesting. When it first started, I thought, it takes place in New York, and I'm thinking, I miss the Miami setting, but it is very, very good. So, very highly recommended. Trying to think of if I've watched any other documentaries. The Amy Bradley one, I watched that. And I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've watched anything new. I did watch, it was on Peacock, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. That was actually really good. And I never did watch it before. I cannot believe he's still, well, not still because he's dead, but when that interview was done, it was in 1992. He said, he killed the first guy because it was self-defense, and then he buried him in his crawl space. But then somebody else found out that I did that and got that idea and killed all these other boys, and then they put him in his crawl space. I was like, what in the world what are you saying? I thought he admitted it, but apparently he never did, as far as I know. He's delusional. I'm sorry, but it's just I couldn't believe that. I watched the John Wayne Gacy tapes on Netflix, and that's really good. That is very good. And then but this one's different. So, but I don't remember him ever talking about that in the John Wayne Gacy tapes on Netflix. I mean, he could have. I just don't remember. But I watched the Ted Bundy tapes on there, and that's a good one too. Very good, with the footage of the trial. Man. And then, of course, I'm keeping up on Brian Kohberger, which I cannot stand, but I am keeping up on that. And it's very sad that the Idaho 4 crime scene photos have been released. Parts of it's blurred out, the photos are, but they've been released, and very sad. The surveillance of the neighbor, the camera, is very haunting. If you watch that, I watch Brian Enton, his YouTube channel that he investigates, and he's done a very good job talking about that case and reporting on it, things that are coming out now, the surveillance tape and everything, and I really like his channel, so very highly recommended to watch his reporting on YouTube. I started getting into him when the Gabby Petito thing was going on. He was reporting on that too. So, but I can't think. I haven't really watched anything recently besides. I did start the Son of Sam tapes on Netflix. If anyone's watched that, let me know what you think. A lot of things about that guy I did not know about. His past and everything. So I'm not through it yet, but I am watching it. But if anybody has any cases that they want me to cover in the Midwest or even beyond the Midwest, I will do them because I am looking for cases all the time. So I hate to get behind, so I want to keep consistent with my episodes. And if you are interested, I have hundreds of episodes on Patreon or Spotify Premium, and it's only $5. I do them from everywhere, cases that movies were based on. So I've got many, many cases on there that I do, and many ones that are old time, that I've never heard of. So I've got a lot on there. But I've had my Patreon for 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in September. Next month, 2 years since I've had it. And I do 3 bonus episodes a month. There's been a few times where I've only done 2, but I normally do 3 bonus episodes. And then most episodes, if not all, are up for early access in case something happens where I don't get to them on time. But I have been doing pretty good with that. So have a great one, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you cannot support me on Patreon, make sure you leave a review on Apple or rate the show on Spotify. And thank you so much for your support. Be safe, everybody. Just watch who you trust. Watch who comes into your life, because you just never know. You never know deep down what that person has going on in their mind, So have a great one, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.